Hey guys, this is Courtney from Lil's Bloom, and today I'm going to be doing an August forecast for you guys. And I'm going to be breaking it down by the month, but first giving you guys a quick overview of some of the energies that I see for us. So, I already recorded an hour-long video around this. Did not load on Loom. If you use Loom, don't use it. I literally had to have a backup recorder, OBS, in order to get this done because Loom is literally, every time I record something long, it just doesn't process it and it drives me crazy. So, okay, so the first thing I want to talk about are these cards that I pulled for kind of what to expect with this energy of this month. We are experiencing Uranus, Mars, and the North Node all conjunct this month. We are experiencing our first Jupiter retrograde of the year. So we are kind of getting some change up of the energy. And it feels honestly like it's going to give us an experience where we have the potential to learn something new about ourselves. And I pulled the dolphin card with this. So it feels like it's something that is experimental, is fun, is playful. The kind of learning that we're going to do this month doesn't seem like super, super heavy or super down. Although there will be some few challenging transits here and there. Overall, I feel like this is going to be a positive month for us to understand a lot about ourselves. However, some of these changes could also feel a little bit destabilizing, and I did a whole video about those changes and about the chaos and the evolution that we're going through with the Mars-Uranus North Node conjunction. It's on my YouTube channel called Evolution Through Chaos. Definitely check out that video. Super, super important. I also have a video, Jupiter in Aries video. Please watch that as well because we're going to be talking a little bit about both of these things. Okay, so starting off on July 28th, we are having Jupiter go retrograde. So essentially Jupiter going retrograde is going to give us a time to reflect inward on some of the things that we've been presented with in terms of growth since May 11th, when Jupiter did enter into the sign of Aries. You may have noticed that there was a shift around this time where you started to grow in terms of your independence, your ability to set boundaries, assert yourself, ask and take what you want and need, go after your desires and motivations, and kind of do what's best for you. Jupiter moving into the sign of Aries will affect whatever house Aries is in. So kind of that area of your life is where you've seen a lot of growth and opportunities present themselves since May 11th. Now that it's gone retrograde on July 28th, it will be retrograde for the entire month of August. It goes retrograde for 4 months out of the year. We are going to get an opportunity to essentially celebrate some of our growth that we have already achieved since May. It's a time for us to enjoy everything that's already kind of happened, and for us to check in with ourselves internally about our intuition, our inner wisdom, and kind of integrate the growth that we've experienced externally on an internal level. So we're recalibrating all right now and making sure that we are very much aligned on an emotional level with the things that we want to experience in our lives. So that's all really important. I did want to mention as well that Jupiter will be stationing, which means that it's kind of sitting in one spot in the chart at 8 degrees of Aries for 2 weeks, or a little bit over 2 weeks, from July 28th to August 18th. This is a long period of time in which we're going to have a heavy push and focus on this aspect of our chart. So if you have any planets at 8 degrees of Aries or of 8 degrees at any of the cardinal signs, then you will kind of feel that there is a heavier focus for you in this area because it will be making a square to those planets. The cardinal signs are, of course, Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn, the angles. So anywho, if you have planets at 8 degrees of any of those signs, or plus or minus a couple degrees, you will really start to feel this a little bit more because Jupiter is putting this pressure on you guys to self-reflect, especially about your leadership. The reason I say that is because there is an astrologer who I read a paper of hers recently. I think her name was Michelle Arder. I'm sorry if I'm not saying that right. But essentially, she was talking about how 8 degrees of Aries have proven to be this degree that is activated in turning points in history, where we are being asked to step up into leadership position or a leader is taken down. There is some type of challenge where we can either rise or fall in terms of that challenge. And we are confronted with these different aspects of kind of career shifts and the leadership within ourselves. So we may be sort of presented with experiences before Jupiter went retrograde on July 28th, from May 11th to July 28th. We may be presented with experiences that asked us to step up in our power and our leadership over some area of our lives. And then now that it's gone retrograde and it's stationing at 8 degrees, it's kind of seeing if we have what it takes. And for us to do an inner calibration to become ready internally to be that leader that we need to be. And this is actually 8 degrees of Aries is a point that's been activated in the charts of all 4 presidents that have been assassinated. So I feel like it shows you just how important this degree can be in terms of a turning point in our lives. And it's a retrograde over this though. So that essentially means that we may not have a lot externally going on that pushes us anymore, but it's an internal push to become the embodied leader that we want to be in our lives. So we may be doing some belief shifting, some internal rewiring in order to get us ready for that path of progress. Okay, so that is Jupiter retrograde. Now let's go ahead and jump into what else is going on. We also have a lot of other planets retrogrades. We kind of have a lot of processing going on right now in general. I'm not going to talk about the other planets because those were retrograde even earlier in time, but just know that we are having a little bit less like forward momentum with so many planets retrograde. And that's okay because we need some time to process some of the things that have presented themselves and to make the most of them to be prepared for the opportunities that do arise. All right, so let's start off with August 1st. And this day we will have Uranus, Mars, and the North Node all conjunct. I already made a whole video about this, so I'm not going to harp on this, but this is a lot of change, a lot of chaos, specifically at 18 degrees of Taurus. Wherever that is in your chart, we are having some things mix up and require us to be adaptable, to make kind of these big decisions or alter our lives in a big way in whatever area that falls in. And so if you guys can do that, you'll start to notice that you're able to progress as a soul with the North Node here, as you learn to stabilize and find like an internal anchor amongst this change in your life and be open to the things that are coming to you. The beautiful part is that Jupiter is also making a trine with the Sun. So we are absolutely being supported here in making these changes. We're going to see the positive outcomes that can come from this. We are feeling hopeful. We are feeling optimistic. And it's an opportunity that we can clearly see is helping us grow as a person. And again, in our leadership because of this degree of Aries that Jupiter is hanging out in. On August 3rd, we have Uranus making a sextile, Uranus, Mars, and North Node making a sextile to Venus. So this can be an interesting dynamic time for relationships in which we are presented with a sextile. There's usually an opportunity here, something that we have a choice about. Do we want to act on this or do we not? Do we want to put some effort into making this happen in our lives or do we not? So many of us may have some opportunities to create a little bit of change within our relationships or within our money or our value systems, specifically because Venus is in the sign of Cancer, in the way that we emotionally connect with and relate to these things in our lives. So maybe you have a time to shake up or change an emotional pattern that you are experiencing in a relationship or with regards to spending or saving money. This could also be true for your value systems or even your expression of womanhood or even your relationships with women, since Venus is related to that. Maybe you can kind of repattern again emotionally how you interact with, understand, and process relationships with women or your values, kind of basically redefining what it is that you are looking for in terms of your womanhood or your feelings in regards to nurturing and motherhood and all of those things. Those things can kind of come into question or be shaken up a bit in a positive way. Although Mars can be somewhat challenging, ultimately at the end of the day, it's trying to stimulate growth and passion and excitement in us to make some necessary emotional shifts that will positively impact our relationships in the end. So it's helping us get a little bit unstuck in some of these chronic emotional patterns or habitual tendencies that can often be from childhood or from familiar situations and familiarity in general. On August 4th, we have Mercury making its way into Virgo. So it's going to move from Leo into Virgo into one of its home signs. So Mercury is going to become much stronger. That means our mental faculties will become much stronger as individuals. We might start to focus more on the details, getting our chores done, being essentially more disciplined in some of the things that we have been saying that we've been wanting to do, cleaning the house, taking that course, running those errands. Those aspects of our lives can start to kind of get tidied up in a way. Great time to essentially sign contracts or make sure that you've tied up many of the loose ends in your life. On August 7th, we have Neptune making a trine to Venus. Very beautiful for artistic endeavors and relationships. This is a very romantic time in which you might idealize your partner, have amazing conversations, enjoy great food together. And because these are both in water signs, it's a time in which you might feel a strong emotional connection to others or to whatever you're involved in, whether it's an art that you're participating in, you could feel an emotional release from that experience, or a relationship that you're talking to someone and you can feel like you're really connecting and seeing that individual for who they are. It's a very compassionate time, a spiritually enlightened time. And so you might just feel like you are more connected to others and to the universe and loved. And so this is a really beautiful time for social endeavors. On this day, we will also have Saturn making a square to Mars. So whichever area of your chart that this is taking place in can be a little bit conflicting. We have such great energy with Venus trining Neptune, but the Saturn square Mars brings in this element of constriction, frustration, delay, hardship, challenge, whether this is internally or externally. So Mars can symbolize wherever we're trying to move forward in our life. So with Uranus there, with the North Node there, specifically, again, 1822 degrees of Taurus, this is the area of life where you're like, I'm ready to make a change. I'm ready to move forward. I'm ready to take action on this thing. But this square with Saturn is indicating that we may have a lot of responsibilities on our hands. We may have other things that we have to take care of, that we have to think about, these other duties or these other aspects of our lives that are practical realities that we can't just ignore. And so there can be these setbacks in a way where we're energetically pulled from what we desire to create change in, and we can't move as quickly as we want to. And I think that's why I have the Two of Pentacles and the Eight of Wands in reverse. The Eight of Wands is wanting to move quickly ahead, but it's being slowed down by being in reverse. It's making us contemplate all the things that we're juggling with this Two of Pentacles in our lives. And so that's what this energy is coming through and saying, is to kind of check yourself before you wreck yourself. It's the universe saying, yes, I know you want to make changes. There's a lot of things that you see ahead of you that you can alter to improve or to be more connected to in your life, essentially, to be more valuable for yourself, to live a life of meaning. However, you can't just jump into a new life. You have to transition out of the old. You have to honor your existing responsibilities and honor the path that you're currently on by maybe taking one step on into the new and having one foot into the old. And so that's just kind of how this energy is flowing. Okay, so that is essentially what I'm seeing for the first week. And now let's go ahead and talk about the second week. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at August 9th. I do want to mention, I should have mentioned this at the beginning, all of these transits will be active before and after the day that I'm mentioning. The day that I'm talking about is when this transit is exact, but we will feel it, again, approaching and ruminating and kind of sticking around even after it has become in an exact angle with each other. So on August 9th, we're going to have Pluto opposite Venus. So this is a time in which we might have a lot of passions in our lives. It's interesting because I did pull the King of Wands for this period of time, and I know that Venus will be moving into Leo on the 11th. So we are definitely kind of ramping up our passionate emotional side. Venus in Cancer is already quite emotional. It wants to create congruence. It wants to create harmony, bringing people together, emotional connection with others, and intimacy. With Pluto opposite it, there can be, though, some triggering situations in which this is challenged. Maybe you have an intimate conversation and someone says something that just kind of bothers you and it rubs you the wrong way. Or maybe you are trying to express yourself and your desires, and somebody tries to thwart that and disagrees with you. And that type of thing. So there are a lot of ways that this can come up. Maybe you have something that you really want to purchase and you're like really emotionally invested in this thing and you really see yourself getting it. But then there's a situation where that becomes impossible or really difficult and you become really frustrated. Pluto tends to bring out fears, insecurities, and deeper parts of ourselves. So those things can be reflected, especially within our relationships or within an internal relationship with ourselves, our values, or our finances. And so this is a time in which you might feel like a little bit more sensitive and a little bit more in a state of unease with those around you because of how sensitive this is. However, this does provide us an opportunity to have a really deep and strong emotional connection when we look past or overcome what is presented to us that we fear or that we're insecure about. So if you have weird conversations happen, it gives you an opportunity to reflect inwardly about how you relate to people that trigger you, how you relate to people that bring up fears, and it can give you a greater sense of wisdom in your relationships and your relationship with yourself. On the 11th, I mentioned Venus will be moving into Leo. So we're going to be shifting our connection with our relationships into this, from this more like intimate setting, from this more emotional, sensitive setting, to it's a fire sign. So, and a very passionate setting. I think that's again why I pulled the King of Wands, which is somebody who lives by their passion, somebody who embodies the things that they love and isn't afraid to kind of own it and shine it. And that's what Venus in Leo does. Is it's somebody, as a society, us moving into us wanting to shine our light. The sun is also in Leo. We are taking center stage, kind of moving more towards our talents and gifts, the things that excite us, the things that are unique about us. Maybe we start investing more into our hobbies or our creative outlets or anything that we feel like is a representation of us. And when Venus moves here, we are now willing to do this more in a social sphere and kind of take this outwardly. So it does rev up this social aspect of our lives. On the 11th, we also have the sun making a square to Uranus. So this is asking us to make some kind of change. A little bit of a shift in our life direction. We could feel a little bit unsettled. We could have sometimes a little bit of chaotic energy or an unpredictable event present itself. Things may not always go as planned. And that's actually helpful because I feel like today is going to have us be living from a place of inspiration, because on this day we will also have Neptune and Mars in an exact sextile with each other. So these planets in this sextile are having us act again from a place of inspiration. Neptune tends to idealize things. It is spiritually guided. It can hold the highest possible vision of the world, of people, of our lives. And it's that word inspiration. It inspires us towards that vision. Mars is totally on board with this sextile. It is excited and stoked about the vision that Neptune can idealize and create and imagine. And Mars wants to go out and make it happen. And so even though the sun is squaring Uranus and we might have unpredictable events and things come out of nowhere, it's almost like it's going to help us create what we want truly out of our lives, because we're going to adapt to whatever situation is presented in a way that aligns with the person that we want to be and aligns with the life that we want to live. So some of these unexpected things could be blessings, could be necessary changes to shake up what we've always had to move towards what we've always wanted. And again, I feel like this is, again, where we are led by our passions, by our inspirations, by our ideal version of ourselves. And we're owning it with a kind of authority, like, yes, I want that. Yes, I'm going for that, because Mars in Taurus will do that once it's made a decision. On the 14th, though, we might feel like we are presented with certain blockages or delays on our pursuit of what we want, because Sun is opposing Saturn. The Sun is an actualization of our desires, an actualization of how we see ourselves and who we want to be. And the Sun is being blocked by Saturn's seriousness. There is something that we haven't considered. There's an important decision that we have to make. There's something long-term that affects us. There's an existing responsibility or an old way of doing things. There may be a duty. There's something here that's kind of like acting as a sense of constriction. It can be any of those things that I've listed. It could be the fact that the tradition says we've always done it this way, and so we doubt ourselves. It could be the fact that we want to do this new thing, but we don't actually have the energy because we have to put so much into something that we've already had responsibilities for. This could be just a very average day that we just have to work too much and we feel like we don't have as much time for socializations or hobbies or creative passions. And we feel like, oh, I'm a little bit drained because I have this so much work and I have so much stuff going on and these expectations from society or from my boss. And so this could be a time in which, again, you're feeling like a little bit depleted. But the good news is that we have Pluto making a trine to Mars on this day, which is giving us that rev of the engine that we need to push through and become even more resilient as individuals. So Pluto trine Saturn kind of is like the Energizer bunny that will replenish us so that we just don't kind of give up in exhaustion or become ill in health. And again, I feel like King of Wands represents that. It's generating a lot of fire, a lot of intensity, a lot of resilience to keep pushing forward no matter what we encounter. All right, now let's go ahead and talk about week 3, which we're going to jump ahead to August 16th when Uranus is going to make a trine to Mercury in Virgo. One of my favorite things, I feel like this is a time in which we are given maybe some new insights about ourselves. Trines are a flow of energy. So the planet of kind of unique insights and downloads and shakeup of energy, change, wisdom from the future. Like if our future self came back in time and whispered something in our ear that we need to know, that is what this aspect kind of brings. And like, as I mentioned, it's a trine. So it's something that we don't have to force. We don't have to make a choice about. It kind of just happens and it falls in our lap. Unfortunately, when that does happen, sometimes we don't take advantage of the fact that we've had this insight and download because there is no effort involved. It presents itself and maybe some people, it will just fall away and they'll kind of forget. But now that you are hearing about it, August 16th, you want to look out for any kind of ideas that come to you. Anything that can help you restructure some foundation of your life, especially with Mercury and Virgo. It's very concerned with how we manage our resources, manage our energy, manage our time, manage our tasks. And with Uranus here, it's in a practical earth sign. It's almost trying to give us a new way of looking at that area of our life. Like, hey, maybe you should start meditating before bed, or hey, maybe you can start organizing your tasks this way. It's just going to essentially help our day-to-day life and routine. So definitely be on the lookout for something like that. On the 18th, we have Jupiter making a trine to Venus in Leo. So this is really beautiful in terms of just having a lot of social energy come through. We can feel like our relationships are on the up and up. Everyone's really excited. Everyone wants to talk to each other. This is a very social time in general. Great time for parties, great time for finances, things like that. So very, very positive time in general for feeling really good, as well as feeling creatively inspired and having opportunities and resources to actually express what it is that you feel creative about. On the 21st, we're going to have Neptune making an opposition to Mercury making opposition to Neptune. So on the 21st, you guys want to be careful about signing contracts, having really important conversations and decisions. This is a time to maybe sit back and enjoy kind of the creative and imaginative side of yourself and how that can be used to inspire you to change aspects of your life that are more mundane or more kind of typical kind of, as I mentioned before, the day-to-day tasks, using your imagination to improve those elements of your life, and maybe even allowing yourself to take a break from being so responsible and watch a movie or do something that takes you out of your kind of practical everyday mindset. So again, not the time to work out important details, sign contracts, because things can be confusing, things can fall through the cracks. And if you do have to have an important conversation, it might not really come across in the way that you've intended. So be aware of that. On the 21st, we also have Mars moving into Gemini. So again, extra emphasis on the stimulating mindset, on wanting to accumulate knowledge and information, learning new things for yourself. And Mars may want to go and take action on some of those things that it learns. So you might find that you are kind of kicking into gear and wanting to read a lot more or talk about a specific topic a lot more, study something, travel somewhere new. It's just the idea of making different connections that will help you accumulate information. And this could be connecting, the dots of books that you've read, connecting conversations. It's like the web of information starts to build up. And Mars and Gemini is motivated to take action to fill up that web with different outlets, and then they start connecting, and you can honestly create something out of it, which Mars and Gemini is really great at doing, especially once it moves into another sign. So we might start feeling really, really mentally stimulated, maybe even a little bit anxious, but overall, I think this can be kind of an exciting time for many of us. And for this week in particular, I chose the Emperor in reverse. So I feel like it's a lot about giving us an opportunity to look at the structures in our day-to-day lives, the things that are going on behind the scenes, the way that we show up disciplined, which kind of Mercury and Virgo already wants to examine. And it's asking ourselves to look at that from a different angle, maybe change some of our approaches, do things differently so that we don't get stuck in any patterns that need to be updated. Because we always have to kind of go back in and ask ourselves, is there a better way of doing things? Can I learn more about this to do things differently and improve my tactic to be more productive, to do things the right way? And with Mercury opposite Neptune, can I use my imagination, my creativity, my connection with spirit to look at this situation differently? So that is essentially what I'm seeing for week 3. For week 4, we have Pluto making a trine to Mercury in Virgo on the 23rd. So the ways that we've kind of re-examined how we want to structure our lives, how we want to be responsible in different ways, different approaches to our daily routines, this is a great day to actually make those changes with Pluto making a trine to Mercury. It's also a really wonderful time not only to solidify the ways that we want to shift, but to have really beautiful conversations with people that really ground us into something more deeper and meaningful. So we kind of get to the purpose of why we want to make shifts in our lives. We get to the purpose of why we are doing the things the way that we're doing, or anything like that. And because the sun has now moved into the sign of Virgo on this day, we are becoming more focused on the way that we run our lives and take care of our health. And so because of that, this trine with Pluto to Mercury is going to help us get down to the reason, the core, the truth behind why these changes are really, really important to us actually, and how to make them more sustainable. Because if you know why you're doing something, you are invested in that belief system, it's a lot easier to actually maintain it. And so that's what I think is a big change that's going on here. As I mentioned, the sun in Virgo is going to have us really focused on our health, on our level of productivity, organization, the behind the scenes matters, and kind of taking care of ourselves in every way, kind of checking off the to-do list, making sure our clothes are ironed, making sure we look good, making sure we show up to work on time. Those are the kind of little things that we do every day that are now being brought into focus in a bigger way when the sun is in this sign. On the 25th, we have Uranus moving retrograde for 5 months. So you can see retrograde 18 degrees of Taurus. So I do think that this is a time that will help us also kind of change up our practical approach to life, to working with others, towards our sense of stability. I feel like it's giving us is trying to give us more of a balance. Whereas Uranus direct is creating maybe a lot of change in our lives, a lot of instability, a lot of unknowns. When it goes retrograde, it's giving us a chance to create inner change and for the world to kind of settle down outside of us. And this inner change is actually going to help create an equilibrium, a balance, a truth, a fairness in our lives. So we're going to start reflecting inwardly the kind of serenity and harmony we want externally. And then when Uranus goes direct again, we will be anchored within ourselves so that we can be ready for new dynamic shifts in our lives. On the 27th, we have the Sun making a square to Mars in Gemini. We have Uranus making a square to Venus. We have Mercury entering into Libra, and we have Saturn opposing Venus. So we kind of have a lot going on here. I don't want to talk too much about this because I am going to have a full video specifically on this because this is a Virgo new moon. So I might just gloss over it very quickly and say that we may be challenged to make different kinds of decisions around this time, especially concerning relationships and money. We may have unexpected circumstances that pop up where we need to make different kinds of choices. But with Saturn opposite Venus, it could be a hard decision. It could feel heavy, and we may be kind of uncertain about the path ahead. So that's all I'm going to say for that. We also, for this week, we have the Seven of Pentacles and the Magician, which to me is telling me we are starting to manifest and get very clear on all of our tools and talents and the resources that we have as individuals. And we are using these unique resources and talents to invest in ourselves and the way that we take care of our responsibilities in our lives. The Seven of Pentacles is a card about growing something over time. And so we are able to see very clearly how we can best use our talents and skills to grow the things that we want in our life, to maintain them, and to put effort into them. So I think that has a lot to do with kind of changing up the way that we do things and getting more understanding as to why we're doing things that way, and really honing in on and utilizing like skills that we've had likely from past lives. So there is a lot around the routine and the way that we manage ourselves in a way that's unique to us, honors our gifts and honors our abilities. So that is what I'm seeing for August. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope that you come back for more. Please do subscribe and comment down below if it resonates, and you can find the time codes for each week down below. And of course, if you want an astrology video, I always have those on my website or in the description box down below. My website is willisboom.com. I offer birth chart readings, future forecast readings, synastry relationship readings. So I offer a lot of different types of things. I hope to see you guys there. Bye.